everyone, welcome to the MIMS podcast. I am your amazing host today, Janet Williams, and today I will be speaking to Irene Agbontaen. She is the founder of TTYA, Taller Than Your Average. Welcome, Irene. We're so glad to have you here.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into things with a fellow tall girl.
Yeah, exactly. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Do you know what? The sun is shining in London and we love it. I feel like London is really Londoning. We've just had Wireless Festival, so I feel like the community, there's a good energy in London at the moment. Yeah, everyone's having a good time. Everyone's really outside.
Exactly.
So I feel like we're in a good space.
Did you go wireless?
I did not. No, I feel like it's not for my age. It's not for my age mates. However, I had a few. Not for my age mates, but still had a good weekend.
Good. Glad to hear. Glad to hear. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Irene Agbontaen, 9-letter awkward Nigerian surname. But I am the owner and founder of TTYA London, and TTYA stands for Taller Than Your Average. I started the brand, almost 13 years ago now, due to just the lack of inclusive clothing in the market. I stand at 5'11", and I always found it quite frustrating when I used to go shopping with my friends, couldn't really find any clothing. I also worked in fashion, so a lot of the spaces that I worked in, funny enough, my store, my brand ended up getting stopped there. And I think it's because I understood what the customer needed, and I feel like that's really important when you're thinking about especially starting a clothing brand, is who is your audience gonna be and why are they gonna need your product. And I think for me it was I'm 5'11", I can't find just basics, maxi dresses, maxi skirts, all the things that you would just think would be wardrobe essentials. I couldn't find them. So I was like, well, if I can't find them, there must be loads of girls like me who can't find them. So I started digging into it a little bit more and doing all my market research. And actually I was like, well, there's so much. There was a few tall brands that were out there, but I didn't really feel like they had quite a youthful feel to them. So for me, it was how do I make my brand culturally relevant and still target a demographic of people that haven't really been catered to. So that's when I came up with TTYA, and it started as just 8 styles in my bedroom, selling them online, and then I launched in Selfridges, which is obviously quite a massive platform here in the UK. And Selfridges kind of gave me the opportunity to really be press really woke up when I got into Selfridges, because it was wow, who is this person who's got their brand into Selfridges, a brand that we've never heard of before. And I feel like that was kind of the start of what catapulted it to move forward, because once it got into Selfridges, then everyone was like, okay, what is this, And I was just really lucky that my background had come from a bit of nightlife, had come from lifestyle, so I felt like I had enough connections within the industry to just be well, if they've got any talent coming into town, I've got this product, can I give it to you? If you like it, wear it. If you don't, that's also okay. I want everything to be organic. And supermodel Jordan Dunn actually was one of the first people to wear my brand, and it crazily got packed by Mario Testino, took a photo of her, which ended up in American Vogue. And then I feel like that's when the brand kind of just went from this to this.
That's fantastic. What a fantastic story. You've really jumped ahead. I haven't ever really seen brands that cater to tall people. I'm 5'9", you're 5'11", and I find it so hard to find a pair of jeans that literally don't go up to my knees. They look like shorts when I wear them. It's actually crazy. So it's amazing that you've come up with a brand. You've kind of filled that hole in the market. So could you tell us who your fashion inspirations are?
Do you know what? I feel like for me, I don't really have that many fashion inspirations. I know it sounds like a bit cliche, but I everything that I make with TTYA is born out of necessity. Like you just said, we find just finding the basics a struggle, and that's all the stuff that I've made. I haven't done some art deco crazy brand. It's literally just a lifestyle brand of everything that you need. So like you said, jeans and maxi skirts that are not ankle swingers, leggings, all the things that you need. I never even had a jersey, just plain long sleeve t-shirt until I made one. You know, I'd have to always like buy men's double XL and like roll up the sleeves and like buy shirts and make it like, you know. So I would say I was maybe inspired by like music rather than fashion icons. So like I loved like 90s R&B, so like Aaliyah, and like the way she'd always wear like super baggy jeans and like had a kind of masculine style. So I thought, okay, I can achieve that because it's literally just a men's double XL shirt, roll up the sleeves, like baggy jeans. So I think I was inspired more by like music genres than I would say about fashion icons.
Yeah, you can definitely see that it reflects on your clothing lines 100%. I absolutely love it. Do you have any more clothing lines launching? Because I saw that you had an Ankara one, and I absolutely love it. Like, I love bright colours, I love prints, and you were literally the exact same. So when I saw that line, I fell in love with it. But everything is literally sold out. When is it coming back in stock?
I know, it was crazy. So do you know what? It was I'm going to give you the background story on that. So I had just recently started going back to Nigeria, like on my own, without like, because you know when you're younger, your parents always like kind of threaten you, like if you don't get good grades, I'm going to send you back home. So like, I would say my relationship with going back to Nigeria was one out of fear and out of like, oh, I haven't done good in my grades. So actually I started taking myself out of that like kind of trauma and being like, okay, well, let me just go with my age mates, let me go with my friends and see what it's like to go back to Nigeria. So through that, I was experiencing like going to the markets, looking at like, you know, our Ashwebi, our Ankara prints, like how those are made. And then by doing some research and just asking questions in the market, I found the dyeing pits where they dye the Ankara fabrics. And it's all women that work in the dyeing pits. It's actually really fire to see. And actually at the time I was on a job for Nike, and I said to Nike, wouldn't it be sick if I did some jerseys, like we were going to do a Black History Month jersey, and I was like, oh, I want to use the women in the dyeing pits in Nigeria to do this Black History Month jersey. So I took all these Nike jerseys back to Nigeria and I dyed it in the pits, and that was kind of like the starting of how I started getting into like dyeing the fabric and actually using local resources to make the product. And also for me, like I'm Nigerian, but I was born in the UK, so I'm technically a diaspora kid, you know. So it was about like, how do I storytell like my heritage, but like in a way that people who are also diaspora kids can digest it and understand it. So when I first started going back and like I did the whole Nike thing, I put in an application to show at Lagos Fashion Week, and it got approved. And that's where that collection came from. So I designed it all. I used the local women to like dye all the fabrics. I showed at Lagos Fashion Week. I showed a 32-piece collection at Lagos Fashion Week, which ended up going on Vogue, British Vogue here. And then actually ASOS bought that collection. So that was the collection that you saw from Fashion Week, went on ASOS, which was that Ankara collection.
Fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful. Do you have any plans of bringing more Ankara into your
definitely. I feel like I'm working currently now on another capsule collection. So hopefully I'm looking at ways that I can still continue that storytelling and continue ways of like exploring how my heritage is impacted in like modern day like styles and silhouettes. So TBC, so work in progress.
Okay, we'll be waiting for that day. Tell us, what was your first like wow factor for taller than your average?
I think for me, probably when my brand went into Selfridges, because when that happened, again, like coming from quite a traditional Nigerian household, like everything's quite academic. Like, you know, their version of success is, oh, you must be a lawyer, doctor, architect, like engineer. Like, you know, for them, like success came from an academic career, not necessarily a creative career. So I feel like when my mum saw my brand in Selfridges, because obviously no matter where how stern your Nigerian parents are, they're gonna know what Selfridges is, you know. So I think when she saw my brand on the shop floor, she was like, she was calling all her friends, you know, my daughter's brand is in Selfridges, you know, like she was gassed. And I feel like for me, seeing her like excited about it also made it like all the struggles worth it, because it wasn't an easy, and obviously like I'm gliding over it, and like, you know, it took me 2 years to write my business plan. Like it took me 2 years to be able to like understand what direction I wanted this brand to go in before I even made £1, you know. So So it was like, you know, and I didn't make money from the brand maybe for like the first 4 years of it running, you know. So I was still working part-time, I was still doing other jobs. So I think it's also really important to note that, you know, you can have a side hustle, you can still like chase your dreams and push what you want to do and still like have your day-to-day income coming in, because, you know, we've got bills to pay. So it's like, it's great having a dream and like wanting to build a business, but it's also okay to know that that could work side by side with you having your day-to-day job.
Yes, definitely. Did you know that you wanted to be like a fashion designer before TTYA kind of blew up? Did you know that that's what you wanted to get into?
Not really. I feel like TTYA was more of just like, well, I'm getting annoyed and not being able to find things, and I'm in these fashion rooms. Like, I've worked in fashion, so I worked at ASOS, I'd worked at Selfridges previously on the shop floor, like doing visual merchandising. I was a stylist at ASOS for 2.5 years. So I think for me it was like knowing that all of these brands prouded themselves, is that right? Prouded? Yeah, I guess so. Prouded themselves on, you know, wanting to be inclusive, wanted to cater for every type of woman. And I knew that you didn't cater for me. Like, if I'm supposed to be in this inclusive conversation, where are all the tall girls? Where's all the clothing for us? You all do petite, you did curve, but nothing tall, you know. So I always say, like, if anything, like, I feel like TTYA like really garnered that initial conversation on what it meant to be truly an inclusive brand, and what it meant to also like introduce tall to the market and give it like a really relevant market share. I definitely feel like I can own that and be like, the brand started that trend of being like, you know, one of the first people to be in Selfridges, one of the first tall brands to be on ASOS, and now you've got ASOS tall, you've got PLT tall, you've got like everywhere, you've got Boohoo tall. So everyone, you know, kind of cultivated from it and saw that there was a customer that they weren't serving. So if anything, I always say, if TTYA goes tomorrow, I feel like it still served its purpose, you know, because it was about the messaging and it was about inclusivity, and I feel like the brand's been able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Because yeah, like you said, I in the past two years I've only started to see in like tall ranges, like in Pretty Little Thing and Boohoo.com, because I used to struggle to find some clothes. But yeah, they definitely have one. I think it starts from 5'9" above now, which is brilliant. But yours is a 5'11", 5'11",
no, 5'9" as well.
5'9" upwards.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Would you be able to tell us about Irene before TTYA?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, what do you want to know? There's so much to tell. Well, I'm originally from South London, born and raised. I feel like, for me, I grew up in Clapham in Brixton, and I was really privileged at the time to grow up in a very diverse community. A lot of Nigerians, a lot of Ghanaians, a lot of Jamaicans, a lot of St. Lucians, a lot of Caribbean countries and the communities as well. Access to our food, like if you just go to Brixton Market, all our foods is accessible, yams, plantains. So for me, I would say that I was really lucky. Like, I went to a very diverse school, went to a very diverse college. So it wasn't really until I got to uni that I started to feel like, we're not in the majority here. Like, I'd always been in environments where black people were the majority, like, you know. So it's interesting to see now, because I knew Brixton in the 90s, and when you see Brixton now, it's completely different Brixton, you know. So it's been completely gentrified. But I think for us, it's about like, what does that look like for our communities and what we've invested in those communities, you know. And I feel like even like the messaging around my brand and the messaging about like, you know, what I try to like platform myself on now is just about like, you know, us owning and thinking about like what that looks like for the generation behind us. A lot of us, like I said, I'm a first generation diaspora kid. So my mum came here, she had us here, but you know, we had a really strong Nigerian heritage in the household. But we are really privileged to a certain degree because we have accessibility to like free school, you know, free healthcare, things that maybe our parents back home didn't have. So, but for us, it's just like our worlds are quite different because we've got quite a rich culture that we come from that is installed in our maybe day-to-day home life. But as soon as we go to school or we go to, you know, we're mixing with different groups of people, it's a very different cultural setting, and I take that as a positive, because it's like we get the best of having our culture from home but still like embracing the Western world, you know. So we're at a bit of an advantage, but what that comes with is we don't have that legacy. We don't have our auntie Sue that worked at Vogue for 10 years and can get you an internship here, or like, you know, my dad's best friend that is like head at this music label that can get me a job here. Like, a lot of us have had to like grind from the grassroots up, and I feel like that installs a different kind of hustle in us. And before, I think it used to come across as a negative hustle, but I actually feel it's quite a positive hustle because collectively a lot of us have moved up in the world at the same time. So now there's a generation of us that have we've built our careers in different industries and we're able to give those life lessons to the next generation that are kind of coming up behind us. So even for me, I look at my friends like Alec and Alec Botang, who are now the presidents of Def Jam, O207 Def Jam, but yet all of us used to jump up and down in the club together, So it's there's so many of my peers now that are in influential positions that can make change for the next generation that are coming up, and that's across all industries, not just creative industries. And I feel for a lot of us that are first generation, there was no rule book. We've had to find our lane, we've had to find ourselves, we've had to look at what works for us, what doesn't work for us, how do we penetrate, and I think the great thing about that for us anyway now is that we can cultivate as a community. The last 2 years, we've seen so much change, so many brands pledging their allegiance to the black communities, and we can actually now hold them accountable. If I'm honest, this might sound a bit negative, I don't necessarily feel I'm going to see the change that we deserve in my lifetime, but I definitely feel we're in a place now where we can hold people accountable, and that's what the change for me is really important. So I guess when I speak about childhood eyes, it's about what that means to be a British-born Nigerian, and how do I explore that? How do I assist in that? How do I also pass on those knowledges to the next generation of the people who are coming behind me? For me to be able to be I'm breaking out of the mold. I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be an architect. I'm not going to be a lawyer. But yes, I'm going to make shitloads of money. Am I allowed to swear? I'm so sorry. Okay. But yes, I'm going to make a lot of money, and I can still do that in my own way, on my own terms.
Exactly.
And I feel that's really important to share, because it's I always say to my mum, when you're a bit older, you can have these really candid conversations with your parents, and I say to my mum, sometimes it's so important for you to allow your kids to explore their passions, whatever that passion is. Allow them to explore it, because there's no rule book now. Literally, you see people selling their art NFTs for millions. Who would have thought in our parents' generation that you could literally go online and sell a digital art piece for $1 million? It didn't exist, So as times are changing, our parents' mentalities also need
100%.
to change, and I feel that comes through open conversation, that comes through you feeling the courage and feeling the necessity to have those conversations with your parents. And don't get me wrong, they're not easy conversations to have. My mum was thinking, oh my god, this girl's going to do fashion, she's not going to make any money, I've came here to this country to suffer for her to not make any money. And it's well, actually no, I've got a really successful brand, I've got a really successful podcast, I've got a really successful events company, I've got a really successful job at the moment, which has allowed me to do everything that I want to do. So it's just sometimes it is about stepping out from those molds that people construct for you and finding your own way. Sorry, that's a long way about answering that question, but I hope I got them in the end.
I feel as the years go on, especially with Nigerian households, I feel my parents personally have kind of opened up a little bit more. I was the first person to do a creative course. My brother had to do computer engineering. Then my other brother was no, I want to be a chef, and then he did that, and then it was me, and then it's just getting better and better as the years go on, and they're more supportive of it as well, because they see that you can actually be successful in creative roles.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. I know you mentioned that you used to be in the nightlife before TTYA. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so basically, it was my side hustle to make extra cash dollars whilst I was studying. So I used to basically work on the door of a really popular nightclub called the Notting Hill Arts Club, and we used to do a really successful music night which used to be called Yo-Yo every Thursdays, back in the days, long time ago now, but the club capacity would be 200, and we'd have at least 1,500, 2,000 people every week trying to get into the club. And the reason why it was so successful is because at that time in West End, most clubs would be oh, you have to wear hard sole shoes, you have to come in mixed groups, and that was one of the first club nights that you could wear whatever you want, you could come with whoever you want, you could express yourself, and it really cultivated what it meant for music, art, fashion people to all come together and just have a good time. And one of the founders of the night, Seb Chu, he actually used to work at Polydor Records, and so he would always know which new artist was going to be coming out, and we would always make sure that at the beginning of the night, so we have 3 structures. So we'd have kind of that welcome warm-up DJ, then we'll have new talent or some sort of performance, and then would go into like straight club night. So sometimes it was like, you know, everyone from Tiny Temper to Rita Ora to Nas to like De La Soul. So it really varied. If any Americans were in town, that everybody knew that was a spot to go to every Thursday night. And what that helped me do was to garner a network, you know. So I'm on the door. If you want to get in, you need to know me to get in, you know. So that allowed me to be in a position where I was getting to know people. We had regulars, we had everyone from like Mark Ronson who would DJ at the club, you know. So for us it was about like, well, for me anyway, what nightlife did is it really helped me to build my network. And you know, and that's what I was saying to you about like, so what that in turn did for me is when I started TTYA, I had a network of a few talent, a few celebrities that I knew that used to come to the club, that used to come to my club nights. I used to throw parties, and so I'd be like, oh, I'm just starting this brand, if you like it, wear it, if you don't. And I just was gifting it out to different people. And you know, from there I had Jordan Dunn post it, Kylie Jenner post it, like different people posting it. And you know how it works, like once one or two celebrities start posting it, then you start to get the press, and then you start to see momentum. So I would say like nightlife really like supported me, even to this day, like supported my network. I still collaborate with so many of the artists that I met on the dance floor. Loads of my peers I met on the dance floor, and actually so much business actually gets done on the dance floor. So nightlife for me will always have a special part in my heart, and I miss doing events. Like this past weekend that we just spoke about, Wireless Weekend, like I ended up doing 4 events and working on 4 parties, through 1 party myself, and then like did a dinner. So like we had like nightlife is still very much like an important element of who I am and what makes me up as the person that I am today.
Actually, I did see you chilling with, was it P. Diddy and Minnie Harlow just this weekend? I saw that you were chilling with them, yeah? What was that like? Yeah,
it was fun. I feel like the great thing about that is part of the network is, you know, it's an international network. So when people come to our city, we want to host them, we want to show them a good time, you know, and it's also like being, like, you know, positioning yourself where you are, like you're in the culture, like, you know, you're in the mix. So I think the great thing is that I curated Burna Boy's album launch. His album came out last week. I did his album launch party. I hosted his album launch party. So we had everyone from Diddy to Winnie to Jordan Woods to Offset to Popcorn. Everybody came through, and you know, for me it was just about like, how do I continue to make sure that we're storytelling in the right way? Like so many of our artists, like Afrobeats is not even like its own genre anymore. It's popular music. It's technically pop music now. You know, we've seen that with how Essence did for Wizkid, what Burna Boy's song is doing globally. Music is doing globally, so all of our artists are crossing over, and Afrobeats now is like, it's a global genre now. So I always say like it's something that we're proud of, something that we can own, but it's like always staying true to our communities and making sure that we're continually bridging the gap.
Is TTYA also size inclusive? Like a tight inclusive is also size inclusive too?
Yeah, so I did a size inclusive range again with ASOS, so I went up to size 32. We went up
really?
to with ASOS. So I feel like the great thing is as well is that we're breaking into new categories. Like my last collaboration with ASOS, I did footwear as well, which sold out in 2 weeks, and we went from size 4 to size 14. So that was a very big inclusive size range. And again, it was just like, you know, how do I continue to stay true to myself and continue to like build on categories that I can't find clothes. Like I'm really lucky considering that I'm 5'11", I'm size 8. So yes, sometimes in designer size 9, but like, you know, there's girls that I know that are size 9, 10, 11, like they can't get fashionable shoes. So for me, it's always like, how do I continue to break down those barriers, break down those stigmas, but also like introduce new categories. So I'm doing a further 2 collections of ASOS at the moment where we're going to be looking at what other categories we're going to explore, what that's going to look like, and just continuing that inclusive messaging.
Okay. Just to name a few, TTYA has been mentioned in Vogue, Glamour, OK, so many magazines. How did it feel when you first got your first press coverage?
I was really excited. I think more for the local ones. Like, I think one of my first local press in print magazine was Sunday Times Style, and I remember running to the news agents to see my name and see the picture of the brand in the magazine, and then ordering like buying loads to be like mum, and then telling my mum to like go and get some. And then also like there was the Metro, and I think because the Metro is free, I feel like that's when my mum also started taking my what I was doing seriously, because all her friends were calling being like, I saw your door in the Metro, and all her colleagues at work. So you know, Nigerian mums, they like to be gassed. So she was like, Metro was a good one because I remember going to my mum and seeing the whole stack. I said, Mum, did you take the whole stack from the station or what? And she took that so she could share it with her church members and all her other friends and aunties and stuff. So I think for me it's more the local press. Yes, I've done loads of global press, but I think when you have imprint local press that your friends and your family can physically go and get, I feel like those are the moments that are slightly more special.
Yeah, it must have been so exciting seeing your name and lights basically. Do any of you guys have any questions that you would like to ask?
I've got one question. As you've been successful like in what you're doing, and well done to yourself, as for all those out there that want to start their own platform and become successful, what would you say to them?
For in terms of fashion or just in general?
As a whole, like in any business?
Yeah. I would say like in any business, if you're thinking about starting your own business, I think it's really important, one, to be passionate about the business that you're going to start, because yes, social media, you always post all the highlights, all the good times, but there's a lot of behind the scenes that it's really tough. You know, like I said, I worked on TTYA on just my business plan alone for 2.5 years before it even went to market. And then it was like, okay, I put it on this website now. Okay, how do I get people to see my brand? You've got to think about marketing. You've got to think about constantly, like, you're thinking about the next thing. So I would say you definitely have to be super passionate about what it is that you're doing, because on the bad days, you need something to continue to drive in. I would say the second thing is you have to believe in your own source, like you have to believe in your own brand, because if no one's going to be able to sell your brand better than you are. So you need to be passionate about it, you need to be able to speak about it, you need to be able to, like, you know, because yes, you can hire a PR or you can, you know, put stuff on social media, but ultimately people fall in love with you, the person who's behind the brand, about your personality, about how you kind of sprinkle your sauce on the brand, like, and that's what makes brands successful. Like, there's 100 makeup brands, for example, like what makes Fenty successful? Rihanna, like her being including herself in her own marketing. She could easily have just got models to be the face of her brand, but she was really smart. She put herself as the face of her own brand. So it's just using clever techniques and just being passionate about it, and like knowing that no one can speak about your brand better than you are. I would say the two important behind the scenes elements that are really important when you're thinking about starting your own business is, what does your back end look like? So is it going to be a limited company? Are you going to be self-employed at the beginning? What does the back end? Make sure that your structure is in place. Like, think about what that looks like. There's lots and lots of help that's available that doesn't actually cost that much money. The British Library, they have a whole business centre there that they support startup businesses for free. So they do like sessions with lawyers if there's anything that you want to ask about intellectual property, or you're not sure about trademarking your logo or anything like that. There's loads of services that are available to you that you can access. So I would just say, think about like what your business structure is going to be on the back end. So finances, your business account, you know, lawyer, trademarking your name, because these are all the things that, if you're like my brand, when it blew overnight, if my stuff wasn't trademarked, it was quite easy for someone to be like, oh, let me just go and like take her web name or trademark her name. So it's always, sometimes it's difficult to kind of think about all of those things at the beginning, but it's better to really make sure that your behind the scenes, your back of house business matches your social media platform, because you'll be surprised, there's loads of people who are on social media who are selling a business and or selling a service and they haven't even trademarked their name. So it's really important to think about, like, okay, if you're even owning the website, like how many years have you bought that website domain for? Make sure that you put it on like reoccurring, because sometimes it lapses, then someone will just quickly buy your domain name and then you're in trouble. So I think it's really important to just make sure that, I can't stress enough, that your back behind the scenes is also matching. And I feel like today the great thing is that, you know, there's so many marketing tools available to us. Like Instagram was just kind of kicking off when I started TTYA, and it was Instagram that really helped me like leverage my business and social media. So we're in a day and age now where you don't have to be paying agencies and PR companies like thousands and thousands to help you market your brand. You can literally like post on this platform and get customers, but also just make sure that like you've covered your back of house. And when I say back of house, I mean like your business setup, your name, your logo, your accounting, just things like that, so that you don't fall short later on when your business is successful.
Thank you.
What would you say was like the hardest period, like when you're doing this, like your business? Like what was the hardest point?
I would say probably one of the hardest points for me was scaling the brand. I think when you have your idea at the beginning, you kind of be like, okay, I want to start this brand. I know what I want to do. It's very clear. Like your vision is very clear. But when you start when you start actually having customers, and like you have a functioning business, then you're like, okay, what's next? How do I take this business to the next level? And I feel like sometimes that does involve having the cash to do that. And I would say, like, I'll be holding up my hands, like, TTYA is nowhere probably where it should be, because I decided to scale at the best of my ability. Like, till this day, I've never had any investors. I've never been able, like, I haven't been able to take it to the global scale the way that I should be able to, because I chose to go the route of slow and steady. I wanted to like get as much information. I wanted to create my brand as a lifestyle brand first and then scale it to the masses. But I would say for me it was scaling. It was like, okay, I'm in Selfridges, I'm in ASOS, what's next? How do I take my brand to the next level? And I think for me, it was also making it a lifestyle brand. So I introduced a podcast, I introduced live events, because when we went into lockdown, I couldn't produce any product. So if my brand was just based on clothes, there would be no brand, you know? So it was like, okay, let's do the events, let's do the networking events, let's do the podcasting, so that if one element can't work at one time, there's other things that you can fall back on. And on the podcast, it was the same thing. It was about going back to like, how do I give everything that I've learned and all my peers in the industry, things that they've learned, how do we communicate that now to the next generation? So I've had everyone from Maya Jama talking about the business of broadcasting, to Leomi Anderson talking about fashion, to FKA Twigs talking about music, and from their experience and what they've learned. And I feel like once we share those stories more, you are not going to make the same mistake that I've made, because you're like, oh wow, like I've been spoken about this, like, okay, this is how much I should be getting paid, this is how much I should be asking for. Excuse me. All of these conversations that really before, like, we didn't really have no one to ask. So I definitely feel like scalability for me was something that was hard, but I chose to like make my brand more of a lifestyle brand and then scale it when I'm ready to scale it, when I feel like I've got all of those 3 pillars, I've exhausted them to the maximum, and then scale.
So I was going to ask, how do you keep yourself like fresh in regards to like mind, body and soul? What's your keys to those kind of things? 'Cause obviously you're in an industry with a lot of stress, so what do you do to like limit that?
There's definitely a thing called burnout, and I've experienced it before myself. I think at the beginning, when you're so hungry for your brand to do well, people always say, oh, work hard, you have to work hard to be successful. Actually, it's not working hard, it's working smart. Like, you being in front of a computer for 24 hours a day is not going to make your business successful. So I think that at the beginning, yes, you put in long hours because you really want your business to take off, but actually it's about delegating, and that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned with having this business is delegation. I'll be honest with you, nobody is going to do it the way that you're going to do it, because it's your baby, it's your nurturing. But you have to also just free yourself from that. You have to be like, okay, wow, I need a freelancer that's going to help me. Just rather than me being on Photoshop for 10 hours trying to mock up this artwork, let me just pay someone for an hour. They're going to do it with their eyes closed. Then you thinking that you can do every element of your business yourself. I think it's really important to say, okay, you know what, I need help on this. Who can help me? And galvanize your community. So now I've got freelancers. If I need a videographer, if I need graphics, if I need this, whereas before at the beginning I'd be trying to do everything myself, you know. So there is such thing as burnout. So it's really important to work smartly, not just thinking that because you're putting in hours and hours and hours, that's going to make your business successful. But also it's just like lifestyle as well. Like, health is wealth at the end of the day. Like, for me personally, like, I enjoy like working out, I enjoy eating well, I enjoy exercising, I enjoy also having other hobbies. Like, yes, TTYA is part of my life, but it's not, my whole life is not TTYA, you know. Like, I enjoy going out, I enjoy socializing. So it's just making sure that you've got a really healthy balance, but also like moving with like-minded people. I think that's really important as well, because if you can do all of those things and you're not moving with the right people, you're still going to be getting dragged down, you know. So it's important to like move with people who share goals, people who are also ambitious, people that you can galvanize your community. What are you doing? Oh, you know what, I need help with this. Do you know someone that might can help me with this? Or actually, I'm really good at doing video editing, so if you know anyone that's looking for a video editor, sometimes people think that, oh, like to network means like going to the top, trying to get in front of all of these like celebrities, where actually you can form your community with your peers and like really create your own creative hub with your peers and like move as a unit and be like, you know what, I just got this job in, you know, they're also looking for an editor, do you want to work with me on this, you know. So sometimes it's really important to like bring your community together and work with like-minded people who are also interested in moving in the same direction as you.
Okay, yeah.
Do you have any dream collaborations, like whether that's with public figures or a brand?
There's so many categories of stuff that I want to do. Like I've just spent a year renovating my house. Something that I thought would take me 8 weeks, but that's a whole nother podcast altogether, to be honest. But you know, homeware, like everything in my house is designed for a taller person, so my cabinets are slightly higher.
Oh, really?
Like everything I did, because I was like, I'm not crouching down in my own home, so like I've designed my house for a tall person. So just like thinking about like my sofa, it costed me a little bit more, like having to bring it in from Denmark, but Danish people are really tall, so their things are slightly longer than ours. So just all those little things that people probably wouldn't really think about are all the things that I'm obsessed with. So I would say definitely like homeware, like going into more lifestyle categories. In terms of like a dream person I'd probably like to work with, the main person I would say probably Michelle Obama. She's 5'10", like she's always speaks about the difficulty of finding clothes. So I think she'd definitely be like on my top to-do list of someone that I would love to make like custom TTYA. So Michelle Obama, if you ever heard this podcast, holla at me, hit me. I'm ready. I'm locked in.
What are the major obstacles that you had to overcome?
When starting TTYA?
Yeah.
I think some of the major obstacles that I had to overcome were just, like I said previously, about knowing when to scale, and also just like, you know, dealing with rejection. You know, that a lot of people, when I first started the brand, they were like, tall people can't find clothes. Is that even a thing? Like, really? Mm-hmm. And I think that through perseverance, you know, I allowed myself to like just keep pushing. But that's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to wake up every single day and say, I'm going to carry on with this because I believe in it. Even though everyone else is telling me no, I'm still going to get up. I'm still going to be calling people. I'm still going to be figuring out what this person's email is, going on LinkedIn, see if I can see a colleague's email, working out, is it their first name dot surname? Is it their first name then surname? Like just hustling my way through, you know, and that takes a lot of energy to wake up every single day when people are telling you no and keep on doing it. And that's why I said when you start your brand, you have to be passionate about it, because you're going to get a lot of rejection, you're going to get a lot of no's, you're going to get people who are not going to understand your concepts, your ideas, but you have to believe in it, you have to be able to sell it. And so I feel like it's important that if you believe in your stores and you're passionate about it, with the rejection you're still going to get up every day and still push and be like, do you know what, I believe in this, I know I can make it happen, I know I can do it.
Mm-hmm. That brings me to my next question actually, because I was wondering if you had a backup plan just in case TTYA didn't get to.
I did. I was like, well, I've got a forensic science degree, so I was like, that's my plan Z. If A, B, C, D, E, F, G doesn't work, we'll get there in the end. Last, I can go and be a forensic scientist. But for me, I always knew that my passion was in creative. So probably if I wasn't doing TTYA now, like I would still be in some sort of creative career, because it always works simultaneously with my academic career. So I don't know, if I wasn't doing TTYA or doing all the bits that I'm doing now, like I do TTYA, I'm also like doing a lot of strategy for a lot of talent, I make loads of product and merch for a lot of talent. So I feel like for me it was just like everything kind of just, I feel like my plan, I believe in God very much too, so I feel like my plan was already kind of written out for me, and I was designed to be the rule breaker in my household. So I guess it would just have been something else in creative, definitely, for sure.
Does anyone have any more questions?
Yeah. So, do you have any advice for someone that needs recognition? Because me personally, I feel like I'm in your state from like when you started. Because I feel like in the industry, you need creativity and you need to be different than other people. That's how you get recognized. But I feel like I'm struggling to be recognized with like video editing. So, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I would say definitely. People always forget the main resource when it comes to business. Everyone thinks it's Instagram, it's actually LinkedIn. And I felt if people used LinkedIn the same way that they used Instagram, they would get the recognition that they needed. Because LinkedIn is for business, and I feel like it's quite easy to message business people on LinkedIn, like, oh, I've just done this new edit, check it out, let me know what you think. If your company is looking for any editors, just wanted to put myself forward. I think it's, people sometimes put their work on socials, and I'm guilty of it too. I put my work on Instagram, think like, people should see it, people will come for me, people will look for me. Actually, sometimes it's about like putting yourself in the situations with business people and showing them your work. So I would say like really, and I've only really learned that in the last couple of years, is really invest in the time in LinkedIn the same way that you do. Almost see LinkedIn as one of your other social media platforms more than Instagram for business, and like really make sure that your portfolio looks slick, because it's easy. You can just literally find, oh, who is the head of eBay? Who is the head of all the companies that you want to potentially work with? Maybe write down your top 10 list of brands or collaborators or record label people that you'd love to work for, and just be like, oh, I can find this A&R on LinkedIn. Have you seen my work? Would love to know if you're working with any artists, if you need any editors. I'm available this summer, or I'm available. So just always just making sure that you're a walking advertisement and you're selling yourself, but in the right platform.
Yeah.
On the right platform. That's my advice that I would give.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So the last question that I have for you today is, where do you see TTYA in 5 years?
To be honest, I feel like I'm gonna make it a festival. That's the next step. That's my next big moment. I'm gonna make it like a cultural festival. I want to have workshops, immersive workshops. My nephew's 10 years old, but he's obsessed with computer coding, and I just feel like there's a whole generation that are coming up now that are way more tech savvy than I am. Like, I know the kids love TikTok, but for me, I'm just like, whoa, what is this? But you know, just like immersive experiences and making it a festival where like we can work with tech partners, we can work with lifestyle brands, we can do workshops, we can do and have all of that information available online for people to be able to access it and know the resources that are out there, because I feel like there are a lot of resources, but we don't necessarily know where to go, or we don't necessarily hear other people's stories and the way that they've done things. So my next step for TTYA is to actually make it into a lifestyle festival. I have the podcast, so I'm working on season 3 at the moment of the podcast, and then I have my live event, so that too is like would tie into like the festival. So I said the 5-year plan is watch this space. Hopefully you'll see TTYA Talks the festival.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
What's the name of your podcast?
TTYA Talks.
What about the live?
TTYA Talks.
Okay, TTYA
Yeah.
Talks. Okay.
Yeah. Everything's so we have TTYA Talks the podcast, and then TTYA Talks Live, which is like all the events and the women's meetups and soirees. So we do loads of. So like last summer, I did TTYA Talks the summer soiree, and I brought through 200 of the amazing black women who are pioneering in the creative industry. So it was like heads at Vogue, heads at labels, heads at editorial, fashion, music, art, you know, and cultivated them in one space. So it's just like continuously bringing those messages and continuously bringing our people together, so we cross-contaminate and we cross-collaborate.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Irene,
Thank
for joining
you.
us here at the MIMS podcast, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. And for those of you who are listening who are not already following me, I'm going to shout out my socials. It's just at Irene TTYA across all platforms.
Amazing. Thank you so much again.
No problem. Thank you.
Amazing.